Welcome to the Unraveling Onion Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to our first podcast. We are calling it the Unraveling Onion. We've had a lot of discussion about why we should call or what we should title this podcast, and we've come up with a lot, but I think we have an overall theme that we wanted to discuss with most of you guys, and my wife and I, Chelsea, here, we are interested in unraveling layers of life, I guess you could say.
Peeling back the layers.
And not just like layers and like, you know, just your feelings and stuff like that, but we want to peel back layers on, you know, how to communicate and how to live a better life and, you know, live a better story overall. And there's just a lot of details you have to dissect. I was just talking to my friend the other day, and, you know, he's dealing with stuff with communication with his wife. And, you know, when she has a problem, it's not the problem. You got to dissect it more. And I think most people just don't really want to know the problem, because that means they would have to look at themselves. And that's just...
Well, and you got to kind of push away your own emotional feelings towards it. So in order to better communicate, you have to eliminate the feelings that you have and be able to push past that and realize that the feelings you have may not be based off of what they're actually saying. You're taking it a different way, right?
Yeah, and that surface area just doesn't matter. And especially when you're in a relationship. And, I mean, we're not going to just talk about relationships, though. I think one thing we really take pride in is not in just our communication, but we take pride in making steps. And those baby steps are part of peeling the unraveling layers of your life.
Getting to the nitty-gritty.
The nitty-gritty.
All the good and the bad.
And it's all starts off very subtle. It starts off with one choice at a time. So a lot of people listening right now are probably wondering, like, how do I live that better life? And it's not an overnight fix like you see on, you know, these health coaches with, you know, six-pack abs or trying to tell you, hey, get in shape. And it's like, it's not like jumping right into it. It's making decisions one by one by one by one. For us, it was, hey, let's eat a little healthier. And then let's cut out this. And then we went vegan for a year and a half. And we're no longer vegan, but because it just wasn't quite making Chelsea feel where she wanted to feel. And we're going to dive in all the health decisions we made. But then we started making little decisions like yoga. And we were really bad at it at first. And then we got better at it. And then we tried new workouts. And we tried new choices. And then we tried... now I'm trying intermittent fasting, and then I try to fast. And, you know, it's all about trying it and not being good at it. And there's a lot of people that they get intimidated, right? I mean, they're just intimidated by, oh, I can't be that.
It's the fear of failure.
Yeah. And in fact, this podcast is exactly that. It's, you know, I have so much I want to talk about. There's so much.
He's got so much in his brain.
Oh, there's so much, and there's so many topics.
So really, it's unraveling Isaac's brain.
Oh, goodness.
Unraveling the little nuggets.
And, you know, this podcast may not be the best podcast you've ever listened to today, but we're, like, passionate about being consistent and reliable and bring some messages that really matter.
And doing it because you want to, because you have a passion for it, whether it scares you or not.
Yeah, I'm totally scared. I totally feel it every day, but I've been kind of obsessing about it. I listen to Joe Rogan. I listen to so many different personalities, and I just love their minds, you know, and I feel like I get to know them and I become their friend. And because I get to know them, I feel like I have a perspective on the world of wise men that I respect or women that I respect, and I listen to them, and I feel like, you know what, that's perspective. And the more perspectives you get in life, the better you will be. And I think that's one thing I've learned in, you know, my job. And I think we'll just kind of talk about intros a little bit here. But, you know, I'm a national news photographer. I travel the country covering the biggest stories in the country. I've been doing this 13 years. I've been doing local news for 9 years. National news, I guess 10 years I did local news. So, and then 3 years I've been doing national news. So the last 3 years, 2016 to 2019, ooh, man. I mean, you remember 2016, the year of the election, protest, hurricanes, fires.
I was pregnant
Yes.
as bricks were flying at your head.
Yep, bricks flying over my head while I'm marching in protest during the inauguration outside in Washington, D.C. And so that's kind of my background. And one thing I've taken from this job is a perspective on media that, from the local and the national side, that doesn't necessarily align with the media message out there. And it's just kind of an insider perspective that I want to dive a lot into. And one thing I really love about, being in the news is you really get a lot of perspectives. When I was in Colorado Springs working in local news, it was just, you got all the city councilmen, you got all the lives of your community, and you were really involved. And as I've moved up national news, it's a different type of involvement. And, there's a lot more bigger narratives that you're telling, you're becoming part of in storytelling. And I really want to dive in authentic stories. And what I love about authentic stories are like, you're learning about people's lives that you've never really even come across. You only read it in a paper. You only see it on the news. You only see, you hear about tragedy and you hear about all these things, but you don't see their lives after these things happen. And I'm kind of in this position where I go to the year later, the anniversaries of tragedy, and you see the rise from the ashes. And, doing this as long as I've done it, it's kind of been a great perspective to see people grow. And that when people fall, they do get back up. And even though those things are terrible, there's a lot of terrible things that happen. And they are very sad. And they get to me. I do always know that there's something that comes out of it in the end, that people find their passion and find their love. And, I don't think the media portrays the fulfillment and the growth that comes out of these tragedies enough. So, I think there's just a lot to say about that. And I think when you watch the news, I think there's a way you can watch the news and look at it and say, all right, I can step back and see why they're doing what they're doing and why they're telling these stories and what they're not following up on. And that's what got me obsessed about podcasts, is because I really got obsessed about, look at these people. They're talking for 3 hours. They're not talking in sound bites. They're not giving you part of the story. They're forcing themselves to tell the full story and how they feel and where they come from. And you sit back and realize, and you think if you watch them on a national broadcast that they would be enemies. But if you listen to them sit down on a podcast, you say, okay, I don't agree with you, but you're a reasonable person. And I think
absolutely changes your perspective.
And I think that would highlight, I think that's something I want to highlight more in the world. As a journalist.
And for regular people too. So not all these celebrities. I mean, Joe Rogan podcast, they have all of these people that you already know. But what's cool about this is because you really want to dive into regular people and their stories and how they've overcome.
Yeah. So that's kind of my background. And as a couple, I'll just quickly say I'm a dad. We have a toddler named Tesla. And we have one on the way, due September. And, life is hitting us, and we're making time for a podcast. And it's, Tesla is down for a nap, and this is when we can do it.
This used to be the Nap Time podcast.
And a lot of people have excuses to why they don't follow their dream, and we're not going to let it be an excuse. And that's just part of something we've put in practice, is not letting excuses get in our way. And, like I said, we're not going to be here and tell you, hey, this is how you parent. This is going to be about how you can take one step at a time and find a meaning in your life, little by little by little by little. And there's a lot of moral truths and a lot of things you can take wisdom from and narratives out there that I'm obsessed about talking about. And they're just subtle things in the news, subtle things in every story you ever hear that you can really take wisdom from. I mean, you see this obsession with Instagram and memes and people posting empowerment memes and empowerment messages that they feel that they connect with. Well, what are those? Those are they're little things that we want to keep in mind to move forward throughout life. And that's kind of what I'm aiming for this podcast to be. And we want to talk about that in the realm of health, parenting, communication, career, taking risk on things you love like podcast, and many other things. So that's kind of my story as a dad. I'm going to give Chelsea the mic because I talk way too much, but
That's perfect.
we're going to figure it out here. We're going to work on a balance. You can kind of let us know what you guys think of all my talking.
I love it. I get to listen to it every night before bed. Our bedtime ritual is, hey, let's go to bed. We get ready for bed. We get in bed, and then he talks to me for about an hour and a half about all of these awesome ideas in his head floating around. So at least there's an outlet.
So go ahead, Chelsea. Tell me, go ahead and share a little bit about you and what you, obviously this has kind of been something I've been pushing on you a little bit, but what would you be excited to talk about on the podcast? Because you have a lot, I mean, you're ridiculous smart, and I don't know how I'm going to even compete with you. You got all the, you're grounded in so much. So tell me more. Talk to us.
Well,
come closer to the
to
mic.
introduce myself, I guess. So I'm in digital marketing. So I have my own consulting company, and I also consult with an organization that works with nonprofits to help with their fundraising and marketing efforts and strategy. I love it most of the time. And I work from home. So I think a lot of my struggles come from being able to work semi full-time, at least try and get full-time at home while being a mom to a toddler who's in
Pulling her
constant
hair.
need of attention. And I think, for every parent, it's very difficult to try and, if you are a full-time worker, you're always missing your daughter or son. You come home and you feel like you're lacking because you don't get that time with them, but you put in the work. Or if you're a stay-at-home mom, you feel the struggles of just, the daily routines and tasks. So not to say that anybody doesn't have the same struggles, but it definitely is hard and different than I thought it would be to be working and trying to work full-time while at home and trying to give her as much attention and care as she demands. But I'm just kind of here along for the ride. I feel like, you cover all the topics. I think I'm excited for you to talk about a lot of the perspectives that you have, because as a couple, I think Isaac has a unique perspective as a male that's always been very fruitful in our relationship. And when, discussing relationship issues with some of our friends and family. So you kind of have a unique perspective that is awesome to share with the world. So I'm excited for you because, I think a lot of men can really benefit from hearing that side of things. And just so you know, for a background, Isaac and I have known each other for, I was 15.
Probably 2003 or 2?
Mm-hmm.
2003?
So 17 years. We actually dated in high school. I was 15. He was my first love. We've had a lot of chaos and trials and separation and marriages and divorces and things in between, but he always stayed my friend.
I was always chasing her. But we were never single at the same time. Ever since we kind of separated, kind of went our different ways in college, and
I moved to California for college.
But that I've always known that it was just this gut feeling like, wait, I let that girl get away, and as soon as you were available, I was like, let's go. I'm 2 feet in, and I think I've maintained that, and that's one thing I've made that promise, and not to brag or anything, but I'm pretty proud of maintaining a promise like that to you. And that's why I'm really empowered to talk about relationships. It's because I think keeping your eye on the ball and aiming high and finding a spiritual awareness and the power of the idea of what a relationship or marriage or co-parenting means, and being a partner. And, and having empathy even to things you do not understand.
Well, I think you've always been really good at that. And I think what we kind of bring to the table is a different I'm a female, but I think like a man. You know, emotionally, I'm very masculine in a lot of like the closed off emotions and non-communication. And you've drawn that out for me. You wanted to have these conversations and communicate and talk. So while you are a very masculine entity, you have a lot of the feminine natures when it comes to emotion and communication and relationships. So I think that's probably what brings that unique perspective, is because we see the other side so well while still being
and
our counterpart.
you know, masculinity is a weird thing because a lot of people think, a lot of guys I talk to, and I was just at the bar with some of my oldest friends, some of my closest friends, and it was just one of those things where they were talking about, well, I don't know if I want to sacrifice my masculinity to try and like give in to helping my girlfriend or wife or whatever, because if I I think what they said was, if I let go a little, then when does it stop? And what I tried explaining to them is, you're a unit, you're a team. What hurts one of you hurts the team. And it's not about sacrificing, it's about communicating exactly what the problem is. In the conversation I had, it was about parents. She was upset about parents visiting as long as they do. And he thought, oh, well, you don't like my parents? They got to be parents. We have a kid, that I want the grandparents to be around. And I told him, I was like, hey, it's not the parents. She wants grandparents to be involved in her daughter's life. It's the fact that when they come over, it doesn't feel like her home. And when you become a dad, you become the king of your kingdom, and your wife or girlfriend and kids should feel like they're home no matter what. And you change that relationship. So you got to change that relationship with your parents, because you're no longer under their kingdom. You have moved on to another space, and you are on the throne. And when they visit, you are on the throne, and the queen is on the throne too. You're not there to tell her how to parent. You're not there to tell her how dirty their house is and what they could do better. That is not. You need to create a new relationship with your parents. And I think that's one thing we've had to do with our family is separate. Hey, you're in my house now. This is how we do things. This is how we raise our child. This is how we keep the peace and something the peace we're really proud of in our home together. So if you want in, come on in. And I know there's a lot of risk. People are like, oh, well, my parents would be really upset. Well, yeah, they might be. That's part of the realm you have to dive into in order to change that relationship with your parents. Because if you don't, they're your parents.
They're always going to treat you like their child. You're always going to be their baby and their kid. So until you make that separation and have that conversation with them, they will always try and naturally just be in your life and be in part of the decision making and have that influence, just because they always have.
And I think what you can do is you can take the pressure off them. I think parents are always worried about that. They always want to be the person to bring you more advice and help, and they want to interject themselves in your life their whole life. But I think what happens is you got to morph that relationship into, hey, be my friend that I can rely on. Be someone that cares about me no matter what my decisions are, and that we can hang out, and you're not telling me to clean my room. You're not the person that, in fact, that's what's crazy about the whole thing. You're dynamic. There's this, you put your parents on this pedestal, they're your God when you're a kid. They're the rule makers, they're the enforcers, but they're also the person that brings you to all your opportunities. And then you grow up, and then you create your own opportunities and your own enforcement and your own rules. And then what are they? And they're losing, their identity's changing with you. And you got to accept that, and you got to be compassionate and empathetic towards that. But you also got to kind of give them a hard truth and say, hey, I want you in my life. Be my friend. You know me so well. I love you. I want you part of my life, but this is my kingdom. And what I need from you is to just care about us, and we'll care about you, and we'll be there for each other. And it's going to be a hard truth for them to accept, because they're not going to want to step down. They don't like to be told, by their kid what the rules are. Well, guess what? Reality sets in. And it'll set in with them, because what are they going to do? Like, are they really going to disown you because you have taken authority for your family? And if I'm a father, me as a father, I'm looking forward to my daughter taking responsibility for her life. She's accountable for her decisions. She's accountable for her environment, accountable for her career, and she owns up to everything she does. And even if that means, Dad, get away from me. And you know what? I see signs in our toddler already starting. And you look at her and you say, you know what? Good job standing up for yourself. And being a parent is the ultimate stand. It's the last one. If you really ask, I mean, it really is the last stand, because the rest of the relationship should be growth. It's no longer pull me this direction, pull you that direction. No, it's about growth and growing together and help and supporting each other through a whole nother journey, because them as parents, they are growing from parents to two individuals that are hanging out again, and they haven't done that since they were, 20, and we're changing our identity from our hanging out period to we're hanging out in the same house, kind of being a partner and watching this kid and trying to fit in that little bit of time and romance at the end of the day. And we both work hard to get to that section of the day. Let's clean the house. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's make sure everything's ready so we can sit down on a couch, have some wine. Obviously, you're not drinking right now, but that's the aim of the night. And that's how you keep the romance in your relationship as parents and as a couple, because
Intimacy
is hard to maintain.
and not just sexual. Just having conversations of, hey, I'm Isaac and you're Chelsea. We're not parents right now. Like, we are our individual selves, and we're just having conversations about whatever.
And those conversations can be productive. They can be flirtatious. But if you don't make time for them because your house is always in chaos, and you both don't work towards the common goal. If one of you really loves your, Broncos, we live in Denver, by the way. Broncos are the big thing. But, I have friends that they have to see every Broncos game. Well, then the house is never done.
Or it falls on to do all of that.
And then how do you think she's going to feel if and not only that, but what if she comes at the end of the day and you still don't want to hang out with her after she put all the work in? These are things you got to think about. Is as a relationship, you both got to feel that the other person has the same aim as you, to aim high in all aspects of life, whether it's your career, your ambitions, your outlets, your social relationships, your health, your attention. All those aspects are all supposed to feel like, hey, my partner understands that I have all this, and as long as they're aiming to help me get there, and I'll aim to help him get where he wants to go.
That's the 2 feet in. And
that's what the title I've deemed this episode is, 2 feet in. And that's what I feel about this podcast is, I want to do it. Chelsea's like, all right, buy some mics and we'll do it and we'll figure out a time. And because of that support, I'm in a healthy place because I'm doing what I want to do. And who knows how good this is going to be. And I kind of been thinking, what if nobody likes me? What if nobody likes me? And that's what everyone's going to think about starting something new is, what if I only get like 10 views? What if I only get like 50 views? Like, I won't be viral. Will it be worth my time? And I've been just thinking like, I'm in national news. I have thousands of viewers view my videos. Gosh, more than that. Yeah, tens of thousands probably. And that doesn't bring me joy as much as me talking to 10 people and making me making it, and it feels like they have taken something from what I said. And it's about stuff I care about that I think if other people cared about, they would just communicate that a little bit more and have it in the top of their mind and bring it with them every day. And I'm not saying I'm some guru, but my attention to communication and getting to the bottom of things in all aspects of life is all focused on what moral truth you can pull out of that. I've always been a storyteller. I've always been obsessed with narratives. I was a media junkie, and then I got into news because I could tell dang good stories. And I can still tell dang good stories. But now I'm learning, hey, stepping back from telling stories, what makes people live a better story? And what narratives define those great stories? What hero journey? What, rising and falling and sacrifice, and all these ideas represent something bigger in people's lives, and they don't even realize it yet. And by making decisions to aim at those narratives in your life, you can be the story that you are spending, 10 hours a week on Netflix watching. You're watching the story of these great people that are hilarious or dramatic or have, found a passion, and they attack it every day, no matter how hard it is. And then they come out the other end something bigger. Like they have their Phoenix moment. And you see these stories in the Bible, and you see them in mythology, and you see them in Disney movies, and they're common all over the place. And we just don't inherently digest them as, oh man, what are these patterns that all these stories have in common, and how can I take those patterns and abstract them into my own life? And I'm obsessed with that. I'm obsessed. And I look for those patterns everywhere, and I want to bring those patterns to light in this podcast.
And you always tell people to be the main character of their own stories instead of sitting and watching the Netflix stories, to actually go out and live their life and own their life, be that main character.
Yeah, and there's a lot of girls that I know a lot of girls that are just chasing that, I want to find the perfect man, and I just want to jump into his life because he has it together. And I'm thinking, wait a second. What do you want this movie to be called? You want it to have your name at the top? And that's what you got to remember, is you're building yourself up so you can be the story. You can have the narrative that defines you, and then someone can come into your life and walk the same direction with you. Where you build your own Marvel franchise. Like, you're all walking towards the same direction, and you have your own movies, and you have your own narratives and your own storylines, and you build each other up, and you pull each other out of a pit, because you're going to run into a lot of pits. To think that your relationship is going to be, just amazing. I'm referencing Louis C.K., but he has this joke that, I'm in love. It's just always great. And it's not. It's not always that way. But it is if you look at the narrative of your story. You say, oh man, we're going through this really, really easy phase where we're not thinking about life, and then life hits. We're pregnant. That stuff happens, and it challenges you. And then when you come out from that and you have that baby, and then you have that moment of, oh man, we're rocking. You have these moments, ups and downs, and you're like, wow, look what part of the journey we're in, as opposed to, oh my goodness, I am so stressed right now. Like it's about me. No, the idea is, hey, look at what we're going through right now. And we're on this downhill, we're on this uphill, but the narrative is exactly what we need, because if we go downhill and we hit a bottom, there's only going up for us. And how are we going to do that? And that's like, life is suffering. It has so much suffering in it. People are going to die. People are going to get sick. You're going to lose your job. There's all these things that are going to happen to you. And it's not about what's happening. It's about what are you going to do about it as a couple? And how are you going to demonstrate your strength as a communicator and as a father and as a mother and as friends to people that are having these same journeys? And
we're right in the middle of one, by the way.
Yeah, we're facing some major stuff, and that stuff we'll probably talk about in our future podcast, actually. Speaking of future podcast, I think what we want to do is keep these down to 30 minutes to an hour, right? Just something along those lines. This is the first one, so we're just going to kind of weigh that out. What else do we want to dive into today? This is our kind of our introduction podcast for those listeners out there.
I mean, you're on a good roll. Why'd you interrupt yourself?
You can't be so far from the mic. You gotta. Anyway. So this is our first podcast, and I don't know if we're good at it, but hey, if you're listening out there, I promise we're going to be working on improving. And I know that everyone listening right now has a dream out there, and they're struggling with their relationship. They're struggling to find peace within themselves as a single person. They're struggling to figure out how they're going to do it all. How are you going to get the dishes done, clean the house? You have 3 kids or whatever. And how am I going to get in shape? Or how am I going to start my website, or even think about leaving my job and going into my own, type of work? And it's scary. And we're facing that same stuff. There's a lot of things we want to dive into, and we don't have time for it. We have the same excuse as everyone out there.
Right. We're not going to be the people that tell you have time in your day. If you want to accomplish something, you just make time for it and you can do it.
But what we are going to tell you is there's a lot of baby steps, the subtle things you can do to improve. And it's little things like, maybe help with the dishes instead of watching the whole game. And then when you get good at maybe helping with the dishes, maybe because you're up, you wipe the counters. And what it does is eventually, as you do these subtle things, it's not about happening overnight, because that's where fights happen. If you think, I hear about this, I've had this in my relationship in the past. Like if I don't do the dishes one day, I'm in trouble. And you know what? I've learned a lot of bad habits as a single man that was messy, and it's still inherent in clicking. But the patience that Chelsea's had with me is, hey, she knows how it makes her feel. I know how it makes her feel when I don't do it. She doesn't have to say much. Gives me that look. And then I just work on it. And sometimes I mess up, but eventually I'll get the pattern down that if I get it out of the way, then we'll both arrive closer to that destination we want to get to together.
Well, because nobody wants to do dishes.
Nobody does.
So if you don't do them, I have to do them.
And it's like, well, then what does that mean to my commitment to this idea of we're a team? And we're in a relationship, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you out. And if I don't adhere to that, then how can I even sit proudly and enjoy myself knowing that I'm letting my wife down? And if we just change your perspective of, hey, you made a commitment, you got a ring on your finger, you're even just dating, and it's like, hey, you're in tryouts, and if you don't step up, why would they think that you would step up as a man across time suddenly? And it's like, it's not about you jumping to do dishes every day or to be as active every day, but the girlfriend, wife, boyfriend, husband, whatever in your relationship, they want to develop an expectation about you that says, hey, this person is really trying for me. And it may not be a lot. It may be subtle, and there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of immaturity. But if they feel that, hey, all he wants to do or she wants to do is aim a little higher with me, then all you can do is go up. You might have up, down on the line chart. But if you're just subtly going up, that's how you're going to improve. And because when it hits hard, it's not going to matter. You don't want to ever feel like you're going down and your communication's getting worse and you're not looking out for each other and you're becoming more selfish and you're just me, whatever I want to do. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to see your friends. I don't do that. You got to make effort to try things that would improve your life, your foundation as a family. Foundation is even beyond your direct family, but your mother-in-law and your cousins and all these things. Like, you do it in your home and then you spread it out. Oh man, sorry about that, guys. I hit the mic. Anyway, going on this tangent, but there's a lot you can do, and there's a lot and it can be little things, and that's stuff we want to talk about on this podcast.
Yes. And to also see the female perspective, because there's a lot of things that we can do as well. As it keeps talking about from the male perspective of how you can help your wife or your girlfriend at home, but it's not all about us. And there's a lot that we have to work on as well.
We are definitely not perfect, but we're excited, and we're flawed, and we're going to do everything we can to learn and learn and learn and learn, because we're obsessed with learning. And we don't just learn facts about philosophy. We like to learn about facts about communication and relationships and moral truths, love language. And I think we might break this podcast out into a couple other things, and we'll start wrapping this up. But I want to try and have guests on here that work in the news industry with me. I want to dive deep into other people's lives and problems they're having, because just so we can talk about them. Because a lot of problems you look at as surface area because you want to defend your behavior. You say, "Oh, I have this problem." Is that the problem, or is the problem because you don't want to look at yourself? And I think just having that conversation, you're going to improve your relationship overall with whoever it is. And so I want to do that. I want to talk about video. There's a lot of I've been a cameraman for 13 years, doing documentary style. I've kind of mastered techniques at video, and I've taught a workshop on how to be creative and become a content creator, and through all platforms. It doesn't matter, digital or television. And then I think we'll have some fun podcasts too. I was kind of thinking about this. You can tell me what you think, but there's music video. We are obsessed with music videos in this house and YouTube. And we're pretty current. We know Coachella artist. And we dive into that's kind of a daily thing we make time for, is listen to music, and modern music and pop music and pretty much everything except rap. I think we haven't jumped on that rap train, but we're going to try at some point maybe. But I think it's something I do think we want to dive into, have some fun on this podcast as well. So we really would like you guys to tune in. And Chelsea, you have some other ideas you'd like to talk about? Not right now. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap this first episode of The Unraveling Onion. I hope you think we unraveled a lot. Did we unravel anything?
I think we unraveled a little piece, a little sneak peek.
Yeah. Just a little tears.
Just the top.
Just the top layer of how deep we can go into this onion.
Not enough to make you cry, but just a little.
Yes. So, all right. Well, why don't we wrap this up? And thanks for listening to our first podcast. And I hope you'll take this journey with us on making improvements and living a better story, telling a better story, through any kind of way you'd like to improve yourself. And there's just, like I said, it's little by little, layer by layer by layer. Onion reference. All right. Thanks for listening.